This video is about changing the appearance of a stripe in a simple rib worked in the round. If desired, the stripe can be changed and straightened from this to this, and also appear more defined and changed from this look to this. I'm going to knit a stripe consisting of 3 rows of a contrasting colored yarn, and in order to make the stitches look even, I will use 2 needle sizes, the smaller one that I used for the rib and the larger one that I used for the stockinette stitch. To better hide the transitional area, I make my first stitch of the row a purl stitch and place a marker, so I know where the row begins and ends, like this. Now I will add a contrasting colored yarn with a provisional knot. And bring it closer to the beginning of my work. Like this. I move the yarn tail and the light colored yarn to the right, out of the way. And I will use the dark colored yarn for the stripe. The first row in the new color is made up of the knit stitches only, with a larger needle. The second row and the rest of the stripe is worked in a rib with a smaller needle. For the first row, I will remove the smaller needle and I will use a larger needle. So I take this needle and just get it out of the way. The first row is going to be not a rib, but a knit stitch row using a larger needle size. So all the stitches are knit stitches. I will continue working the knit stitch row all the way in the round, and I will see you at the end of the row. Here I finished one row of the knit stitches, and just for convenience I am moving the light colored yarn out of the way. So I only have the dark colored yarn to work with. The second row is going to be a rib, and I change back to a smaller needle size. So I pull this larger needle out of the way, and I'm going to now continue working with a smaller needle. My first stitch of the row is a purl stitch. I bring the yarn to the front of the work, like this. Then insert the right needle tip from right to left into the stitch and slip it off the left needle tip with yarn in front. Next is a knit stitch column, and I make a knit stitch. So this created an illusion of a purl stitch without actually working a purl stitch. Just don't make it too tight or too loose. The following column is a purl stitch column, so I make a purl stitch. And then a knit stitch. Again a purl stitch. A knit stitch, purl stitch, and I'm going to finish this row and see you at the end. I finished my row, and this is the first stitch of the row, the one that was a slip stitch. And I'm going to work it as a purl stitch. Like this. And continue the rib, alternating the knit and purl stitches in the usual way. I will continue the row, and I will meet you at the end. I finished 3 rows of the stripe, and I'm going to swap the colors again. The first row in the new color is made up of the knit stitches only, with a larger needle. Starting from the second row, I worked in a rib with a smaller needle. I'm getting my light colored yarn back from hiding. So I finished working with my dark yarn, and I'm going to change the colors, and I will continue working with the light yarn. I swap the 2 balls of yarn like this, so that the lighter colored yarn goes on top of the darker colored yarn. By twisting the yarns together, it will help to avoid creating a hole. And this is how it looks at the back. So the lighter colored yarn is on top of the darker colored yarn. The first row with the new color is going to be again not a rib, but a knit stitch row using a larger needle size. I take the smaller needle and pull it out to get it out of the way. I took the larger needle and I will continue working a knit stitch row with the larger needle. The first knit stitch, using the new yarn, I make a little bit looser so it doesn't constrict my work, like this. And continue working the knit stitches with the larger needle. So I want to show again that it's very important to keep this strand quite loose so it doesn't constrict the work. I'm going to continue working the knit stitches all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Here I finished the knit stitch row, and I'm going to continue with the rib. I'm swapping my needles and change from the bigger needle that I used for the knit stitches to the small needle that I will use for the rib. I pull out the big needle to get it out of the way. The first stitch of the row is a purl stitch, and I will slip it off with yarn in front. So I move my working yarn in front of the work, like this. Insert the right needle tip from right to left into the first stitch and slip it off with the yarn in front. The following stitch is a knit stitch. And I make sure to leave not too much or not too little of the yarn strand in front of the slipped stitch. The following is a purl stitch column, and I make a purl stitch, and then again a knit stitch column, a knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch, and continue the rib. I will continue working the rib all the way in the round and see you at the end of the row. This is the first stitch of the row that was slipped off, and in this row I will work it as a purl stitch and continue the rib, alternating knit and purl stitches. I will knit a few more rows of the rib and will show you the end result. This is our finished stripe. So this is the regular stripe, and this one is the straightened one, and this is a regular less defined stripe, and this is the new stripe that has more definition.